topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Thanks, everybody, for joining in today. This is the first show of 2024. I'm particularly excited. I am Kevin Hallinan, and welcome back to another episode of Winning Business TV and Radio on W4CY.com. We're streaming live on Talk4TV.com, in addition to Facebook, and that's at Winning Business Radio. We're also available in podcast after the live show on many platforms. You've heard them a lot of times. It's YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, pretty much wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. The mission of this show, Winning Business Radio and TV, as regular listeners and viewers know, is to offer insights and advice to help people avoid the mistakes of others, to learn best practices, the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos, to be challenged and certainly to be inspired by the successes of others. But, you know, virtually every successful person I've ever talked to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers. So while we all have to get our knees skinned once in a while, I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history so we don't repeat it. Today, my guest is Bruce Fetra, the client whisperer, founder and owner of Eastwood Strategies. Yeah, I can talk. We'll get there, Bruce. Eastwood Strategy Advisors. Bruce's clients call him the client whisperer. Using a product marketing approach that generates bigger and faster returns for most small to mid-sized B2B firms, Bruce shows those owners how to fish for clients with a spear instead of casting a wider net. Bruce's clients accelerate their sales cycle, get paid for more of their value, and are more referable. Reverse engineering the firm's best client relationships results in insights that banish random acts of marketing. He equips his clients to clone their best profitable clients. Bruce earned his BA in economics from Claremont Mechanic College in Claremont, California, and his MBA from the Tuck School at Dartmouth. He's a trained facilitator and currently lives in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's husband to Debbie, who's an attorney, dad to Brian, who's 25, and Sarah, who's 22. He's not currently a pet owner, but loves dogs, and is definitely a pie over cake guy. Me too. Thanks, Bruce. Bruce, welcome to Winning Business TV and Radio. Appreciate you being here.
It's great to be on, and it's always great to talk to you, Kevin.
It's always good to talk to another pie guy.
Good. I threw that in because it's a good test.
For sure. And dogs over cats. Sorry, cat people. So let's start with some background. I always like our listeners and viewers to kind of get a sense as to where you came from and a little bit of your background. Where'd you grow up?
I actually grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in Menlo Park, back when middle-class people could live there before Facebook and Google and all that.
Man. Wow. I was a recruiter back in right when the internet bubble was at its highest. And even then, it was crazy. We'd try to relocate people into there. It was insane. So what was it like in Menlo Park at the time? And what is Menlo Park well known for?
Well, Menlo Park is now it's a suburb on the San Francisco Peninsula. It was big home to the biggest employer when I was there was Raychem Corporation, which has now been bought by Tyco many years ago, and was in material science. It was a place I worked coming out of college, where I learned product management and learned to actually sell stuff that people made. And now I'm a consultant, so kind of maybe I went over to the dark side.
What I won't do it. I was going to say there are a couple of good consulting jokes, but self-deprecating, I might add. But what were your early interests, high school and maybe early college?
Always been a baseball fan, but I always I grew up in a family of all engineers. So I'm the only one in my family that doesn't have a BS, I have a BA. But I grew up where they were tinker engineers, not these software engineers now that don't know how to use a screwdriver. And so whenever anything broke, we took it apart. And the worst it could be is it was still broken. Otherwise, we learned about it. And sometimes we fixed things that other people said were broken. And so for me, I wasn't quite the mechanical aptitude of my siblings, but that I learned that to apply that to people. And I always love to
Very
understand
good.
why people do things, not, the psychobabble bit, but in terms of how do you create value that people appreciate?
That's excellent. Love hearing that. Why did you choose Claremont and why economics?
Um, I liked small schools. So both
Hmm.
my undergrad and graduate are top schools, but they're very small programs.
Mm,
And I became a big fan that there's three parts to education. One is the classroom bit, one is your classmates, and the other is kind of the atmosphere around there. And my high school classmates that went to some place and had 900 people in their
mm,
intro to whatever class,
yeah.
missed out on two of those pieces. I would see my professors, in the supermarket in town, get invited over to their houses, and I think that really enhanced the experience. And so when I went to grad school, I was looking for the same thing. And amongst the top MBA programs, there's only one that fits that category, and that's the Tuck School at Dartmouth.
Mm.
Um, Economics, general business interest. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to, be business of some sort.
Mhm.
And so that provided a really broad base for me.
Were you there long enough to get into any winter sports?
I assume you mean at Dartmouth, not at Claremont.
The Dartmouth, yes.
Yeah.
Well, you could have
Surfing
gone.
would
You
be the
didn't have to
winter
go
sport in
too
Southern
far.
California.
Well, if
Um,
if you in the Bay Area, you don't have to go that far for
yeah.
a mountain or two, right? But no, I meant Dartmouth for sure.
Well, actually, the program at Tuck, and it wasn't until in my second year that talking to professors, I understood this, but the program was really intense, and what it was is it was forced you to work with other people that
Mm,
you could not do it alone. And so the peak of one class would hit the valley of the other one. And I thought, oh my God, we are so lucky that these peaks didn't line up. And it wasn't until I was talking to professors the second year that, oh no, they carefully script it so that you're not killed, but that you have to depend on your study group mates. And I thought that was a great learning experience. Because the other thing is we came in, we were all really smart. I mean, to get accepted to a place like that, you have to be pretty smart. We
mhm.
were successful, but then we found out that we had solved some of the same problems different ways.
Oh,
So it
interesting.
wasn't that there was a solution, there are solutions. And that to me was really eye-opening and a great lesson for life.
Why? So two things. Why did you choose to pursue an MBA, and where were you after college, after undergrad? Where were you in your career at the time?
So I worked for a little over 3 years. I actually graduated in 3.5 years from undergrad, and worked. So at the Tuck class, and 168 people in my class, there were two that didn't have work experience. Now I
Mm,
wasn't so far in that had this huge opportunity cost. I
yeah.
laughed at the married students at first because they smoked all of us academically. It's like, how can they do that? Their opportunity cost was way higher than ours.
Yeah, yeah, so true.
No,
Hey,
I did well, so I'm not saying like, slouched or anything like that, but yeah, it was early enough in my career that I could do that. I could, take 2 years and go do that, and I learned a lot, but it wasn't, I didn't have family and kids and all those things that,
mm,
make it really hard at trying to locate a spouse with a job and those kinds of things.
yeah. To that point, tell us about Debbie and, of course, Brian and Sarah.
So my wife's an attorney. She does appellate level constitutional law. So
Oh,
we
very
have
cool.
very interesting dinner table conversations. The kids grew up knowing a lot about the Constitution, so that so that's good. Son's he's a civilian analyst for the Air Force, and I can't tell you anything more than that, and because I don't know anything more than that,
Mhm.
because he wouldn't tell me. Uh, and my daughter's a senior in college, trying to figure out what she's going to do next, and she has a variety of interests.
Very, very interesting. I wonder if Debbie would be willing to get on the radio.
She likes radio, but not TV. She's actually on the radio tomorrow, and she doesn't like TV. Um,
Well, we'll see if I can have a chat with. I'd love to talk constitutional law, as crazy as that sounds.
No, it's not crazy in our house.
Yeah, good, good. So, all right, you've had a number of jobs. You were at Raychem, I saw that, and for some reason, I know the name of that company or knew the name of that company. I don't know why, but then you were program manager, programs manager, developer relations, product marketing manager, various companies. You could see the progression into marketing. I want you to just pick out. This is pre self-employment now. I want you to pick out a couple of those more impactful positions and tell us what you took away. What were some of those key lessons, maybe early or later, but pick out a couple and tell us the key lessons you learned.
Well, there's a couple of those, and one is a really big lesson about channels.
Hmm.
So a lot of people that are in marketing or executives that haven't worked in a channel
Hmm.
think, oh, well, we're under price pressure. We'll just shave the channel margin. And then they wonder why the business goes away.
All right, describe for the audiences
Yeah. Oh,
a
so
channel.
so if you're selling through distributions or resellers, and if they're not making money, then they don't sell your product.
There you go.
And that seems like such a simple lesson, but it's one that I've encountered over and over again where I've been the voice of sanity. It's like, no, if the reseller is not making money, it doesn't matter what our margins are because they're not going to sell anything. So you need to make, the customer in that case is really the reseller, not the end
Mhm.
user. And
So true.
and that's and then the other lesson I got was and maybe it was just the quirk of the companies I worked with, but I grew up in a role where product management and product marketing were combined. And it wasn't until 10 years into
That's
my
interesting.
career where I had that role split. And it's like,
Mm,
what? You mean that's like only half a job?
not for most. So again, for the audience, describe the difference between the two.
So product management is managing the product. So what is it? What goes into it?
Its
Um,
life
th-
cycle, its features,
this life
etc.
cycle, the features, and when I, at Raychem starting out, we did a lot of we had a lot of standardized products, but we also did a lot of custom products, and and it was entering new markets. So it was technology that was actually as old as I was, out of patent, but it'd been primarily military and high-end commercial technology, and we were
Hmm.
going into a commercial, lower-end commercial appliances and automotive and things like that
Hmm.
that nobody in the company had ever done. So I knew as much as they did, and so it was really fun. It was a great timing to be there. Product marketing is what you think, a lot of classic marketing. How do you go to market? What's the copy, the advertising, those kinds of things. And obviously, it's a little bit different for a consumer product versus, which I know nothing about, versus a business to business product, which I know a lot about.
All right, we have time for one or two more questions before our first break, but I want to know, here's the big question for me. You have two instances of self-employment. LaFetra Consulting 2018, 2010 to 18. Sorry, that was a big chunk of time. And then your current Eastwood Strategy Advisors. But back up from that, why did you decide to become self-employed?
Well, I'd actually fallen into consulting, and just through a fluke. And the woman I was working with, small boutique consulting firm, decided that she didn't like selling, which is really bad if you're in a small professional services business.
You're preaching to the choir.
And I loved what we were doing. We'd worked with a lot of large software companies, Adobe, Symantec. They always
Mhm.
paid, but you had to harass them to get them to pay you. And so we had an office manager that spent probably half her time chasing down these big companies.
Mm,
And I didn't want to do that. And so I kind of um, gravitated towards smaller professional firms because it was fun. They paid,
yeah.
and they're fun to work with. In terms of the Fetra Consulting Eastwood, it's really a continuum. I was on my own. People can't spell LaFetra, and I had a partner briefly, and
They
then he
can't say it
decided,
either because I thought it was LaFetra when I first met you.
yeah.
Probably everybody.
Um, and then had a partner, briefly, and so we changed it to Eastwood. And then he decided he really liked the certainty and the benefits and things of being in a corporate job, and so I kept the Eastwood.
So I don't know if you do. You probably do. I have a different perspective. I like the certainty of being self-employed.
Yeah,
Control your own destiny, right?
You control your own destiny. You control who you work with. And certainly with what I preach, as we talk about later, in terms of working with your best clients, the ones you would clone, you can't do that if someone tells you, who you work with.
Right. All right, let's pause right there. We will be back, Bruce, in just about a minute. Everybody else will be back with Bruce Fetra, the Client Whisperer, in just a minute.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Have you ever dreamt of being on the radio? Well, now is your chance. Be a radio show guest on the #1 ranked internet radio station and promote you and your business for free. Yes, you heard it, free. Business advertising right here on W4CY.com. Call 561-506-4031 now to get booked on one of our shows. That's 561-506-4031. Get your free advertising now.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
We are back with Bruce Fetra, the Client Whisperer. I love that tagline. Where'd you come up with that?
I didn't. It was a client of mine, and I actually, the story is I resisted it for a long time. I thought it was kind of maybe cheesy or whatever.
Yeah.
And he kept pounding on me, and finally I tried it, and people really liked it. So that's how it came about. So I'm smart enough to use it, but not smart enough to come up with it.
There you go. There you go. Quick sidestep here. You've had several articles published. I want to know two things. Well, first, tell us about one or two of those articles, and then I'll ask you about the process of writing and getting published.
I've been published in a variety of different sorts of publications, everything from the trade magazine for the construction and architecture, engineering sorts of world, to marketing type publications and other places. And the experience in every case is, in some sense, a little bit similar. You probably know that, but in other cases, it's specific to their market, and people want to have their market addressed as opposed to generalized knowledge. So it's applied knowledge is what I find, works with people. So it's stories. I love to tell stories, and I use the right stories for the right marketplace, and that's usually the gist of the way I approach it.
So tell us about one or two of those specific articles.
What's like so one that I have done is that's actually in process. I don't know where it's going to get published exactly because I'm speaking on it. Is I call it the expert trap, and what that is that there's a lot of professionals who label themselves as experts, and actually hurts them. It slows down the business development cycle. It costs them money, they get paid less, and they become less referable. And the reason is that there's nothing wrong with being an expert. The problem is selling like an expert. So come back to your world. Whereas how do experts sell? Let me tell you all the reasons why you should buy from me. And if you show any interest at all, then I'm going to bombard you with more reasons and more reasons and more reasons. And pretty soon our brains can't handle that. So we step back and we start to look around, and now we look at other options, and that can either make us price sensitive, that can, lead us to another provider, or we just end up doing nothing because we're overwhelmed, because that's the biggest competitor for almost everyone out there is do nothing.
That's right. Status quo. That is for sure.
And so I discuss, that situation, and people start nodding their heads. Oh yeah. And then, how you get out of it, which isn't that hard, but it's not by pushing the expertise. Think about it as experts answer questions. That's what they do, right? There's an advisor that helps shape the questions. So yes, there's a role for both of those. One isn't better than the other, but one is dependent upon, works at the behest of the client, and the other one works with the client. The value is very different, and their role is very different. So if you have a lot of knowledge, and I know a lot of experts that do very well, but they get called in for a specific thing. Think about an expert witness or something. They
Hmm.
get called in for a specific task that they don't control. And if you have a great referral network, that goes fairly easy. If you're out there hustling the business, it can be really hard.
Hmm. Good points right there. All right. Tell us about Eastwood Strategy Advisors. I'll read what your LinkedIn profile says for the audience. I'm a growth catalyst helping lawyers, consultants, and advisors do what every business strives to do: earn more without working harder. Evidence from a firm's own clients make my recommendations credible and actionable. Understanding why their best clients select their firm is a game changer. So just generally tell us about the firm.
Sure. So the one thing you need to understand is the concept of best clients. So people talk about ideal clients. Ideal clients are what you want. What really matters is who are you the ideal provider for? Who wants to work with you?
Hmm.
If you can work from that perspective, life is a lot clearer, it's a lot easier, and things happen a lot faster. So I call your best clients are the ones that you would clone if you could, because people can do all the math as to who are their most profitable clients. And I worked with one attorney and his firm. They'd hired a consultant, and he spent like an entire day going through their entire book of business, rating them, and then nothing had happened for like a year. They didn't make much progress. And I was talking to him and I asked him, so who would you clone if you could? And he thought at first,
That's
well,
a
that's
great question.
stupid question. He goes, "Oh my God, we spent an entire day trying to answer that, and you did it in one question." And so when you start to think about who your best clients are, not all your clients, your best clients, now all of a sudden the world looks really, really different. And you've probably heard, and our viewers, I'm sure, have heard that the top 20% of your clients generate 80% of your profits. What people don't talk about is the bottom 20% cause 80% of your headaches.
Hmm.
So if you could focus on just one or the other, actually getting rid of those bottom 20% will cause more upside. Now, if you can do that by focusing on the top 20%, now all of a sudden the world looks really different. You don't have as much variation. You know what your clients want. So it's not, well, some like this, some like that. There's magic, that chemistry, whatever you want to call it, the magic mojo. You're working with clients that appreciate you, understand your value.
Yeah.
They're the ones that say, "Oh my God, Kevin, you get me." That's magic. And now all of a sudden, and there's no headaches. So your capacity actually goes up. So you can work with more highly profitable clients than you could if you cast a wider net.
Yeah. They value what we do. There's mutual respect. So not only is there more revenue and higher profits, but all those other softer things come into play, right? As you said,
Yeah.
fewer headaches. Oh, and you
And
mentioned
now, yeah, go ahead.
referring more business. Talk about that too.
Yeah. So when you start to focus on your best clients, there's I call it your secret sauce. And I call it your secret sauce is because if I were to ask you, Kevin, why do your best clients work with you? Is there something real, or is it just kind of, lucky? And you say, "Oh, no, there's something real." Well, what is it? You can't articulate it. You can talk about value or something that isn't really it. But there's something real. If I ask your clients the same question, they'll answer the same way. Yeah, there's something real about working with Kevin, but I'm not quite sure what it is.
Mhm.
So my process is to reverse engineer those relationships. I go deep with the client to figure out peel the onion back to say, "Oh my God, okay, there's this thing Kevin does. I never really thought about it, but if he stopped doing it, it'd be a totally different relationship." That's your secret sauce. And it's not necessarily for every one of your clients, but for your best clients, it is common. Now you start talking about that. Not only do you attract business, you attract those best clients to say, "Oh my God, Kevin, you get me." But now your existing clients have the words to articulate why you're so great, because clients will almost always, once we get to this point, they say, "Okay,
Mhm.
that seems like almost too simple. Let me go test it out with some of my, best clients." And the clients just go wide and they say, "Oh my God, Kevin, we've worked together for how many years? You know how valuable you are. We wouldn't be here without you, all that kind of stuff. But I've never been able to really articulate why you're so great. You just put words on it."
That's
Now they
outstanding.
become really powerful referral engines as well. So
You're
that's why
saying,
it all fits together. I mean, it all comes together. It's not three different things in terms of accelerating business development, getting paid more, being more referable. It's one thing, really.
and you're saying that's often organic, those referrals.
Those referrals, well, yeah, they become organic, but you also now, because let's face it, referrals come in three parts. I mean, people think referral is you introduce me, Well,
Mhm,
that's an introduction. That's not really a referral or
mhm,
recommendation.
mhm,
A real referral starts with, if I have someone I want to send to you who I think you'll be a great match for, I tell them why Kevin will be a great match for them. If I don't know that, then I can't really get to, step one. But all the value comes after Kevin to be a great, match for you because. So now what do? Do they call you right away? Unfortunately not. No, they go check you out, the digital you on
mhm,
LinkedIn or your
mhm.
website, those kinds of things. And if they see all your accolades, but not what I said about you, it's you're still in the running because you're just like everyone else. Because everyone else, but if it lines up, it's like that's exactly what Bruce said about Kevin.
Mhm.
Now they can't wait to talk to you. And so the third step comes into play because it's still not, closed business. But the third step is now when you actually meet them, you can go in with all your accolades and you do the expert thing, overwhelm them. Or you can say, hey, I know what my referral partners say about me. I know what they read when they, checked me out. I'm going to understand why they're here. And yes, maybe there's other things I do and I will over deliver for them down the road. But if they don't become a client, they never have a chance to have that extra experience. And so you remember why they're there. You line those three steps up, the referral process can become very productive and very quick.
That's really good. All right, tell
I
us,
did, well, I
no,
suggest
keep
the
going,
point
go ahead.
is, but it starts with you have to tell me where your sweet spot is.
Mm.
And if your sweet spot is, small businesses between, 10 and $20 million, it's like, well, that's not it. But if you know what that secret sauce is and you can tell me what that secret sauce is, now I'm primed to go.
Talk more a little bit more about that process. How long does it take for you to help, facilitate the understanding of that so they can replicate it?
So it's really it's not instantaneous, but it's not very long.
Mm. Mhm,
So it's a lot of it's scheduling. So I'm trying to talk to the CEO, the CFO, the EVP of my clients, their best clients. And
mhm.
so those are people that would never talk to, a consultant they've never heard of for I want an hour of their time. These are busy
That's
people.
significant, yeah.
That's a big ask.
Mm,
So I have to work through my client to get introduced in the right way. And so I
mhm.
help them, I've done this a lot, so I know how to set that up for them so they can make the introduction because they know they have a great relationship. And Bruce is here to help build that relationship. And they still think it's going to be a survey or the classic client satisfaction call, which is all about how do you fit into my, Kevin, how do you fit in my client's, business, which is not interesting at all. So right off the bat, my entire conversation is 180 degrees. It's all, how does my client improve your business, Mr. Hallinan? That's interesting, even to a CEO.
Mm.
And they've never had a conversation like that. So it's like, well, this guy seems like kind of smart. It's a good conversation. And that's how I'm able to peel the onion back to get to that point where we find the secret sauce. Because I can't ask them what it is because they don't know. And so we have to peel it back
Mm.
and I have to engage them in the conversation so we can get deep enough to where we have that conversation. And they end up loving the conversation. They go in thinking, oh, they're doing a favor, and they go away,
Right,
wow, wow,
right.
and they feel great about my clients. Like, wow, okay, that was he's like they really really value our relationship.
I
And
can
so,
imagine you might end up doing business with a few of those people.
um, occasionally, I mean, I'm really in a position where I want to make sure there's no selling involved because that's the
Right,
other thing. They think
right.
anytime a
Yeah, no, I
client
heard
comes to
that
you,
for sure, but
yeah,
it strikes me that if they're finding that kind of value, they may ask,
yeah.
"Hey, can you help us?"
Yeah. No,
From
and
time to
and and
time,
I'm
yeah.
I'm open to that, but we have to have a conversation well
Right,
after the
right,
conversation.
right.
So it's overall it's anywhere from a 3 to a 5 month process. It's not all, 80-hour week because there's a lot of scheduling in there. But part of my job is to banish confirmation bias. I could talk to people and come back and tell you whatever you want to hear. And that's what a lot of consultants do. But my job is not to do that. My job is to come back with what is the secret sauce? How
All right.
can you
Go ahead. Finish that thought. We're going to go to break.
Oh, okay. How can you see your business through the eyes of your best clients?
That's outstanding. All right. We will pause right there. We'll come right back to that thought. We'll be back in just about a minute with Bruce Fetra, the Client Whisperer.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, you can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to YP.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind: to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
We're back with Bruce Fetra. Bruce, you raised a couple questions for me. One is, give us examples of, I know it's a broad term, but I think you can do it, of what you mean by secret sauce.
Sure. So there's a lot of variations on this one, but it's the expert versus the advisor. So I'm thinking of a particular law firm, the boutique law firm in this case, but it could be lots of different kinds of businesses. I could give you other examples as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they had it had a little rough patch, really good at what they do. So no operational issues. But they found that it was getting harder to win the kinds of growth that they wanted to do. And a lot of times they go out and they get rebranded and they spend a crap load of money getting new website, new colors. It's very expensive. And initially they're giddy because it's, oh man, it's great. They tell everyone how great it is. And a year later,
in new clients so quickly. Sorry.
Well, no, it's because it's about them.
Yeah.
It's the colors they like. It's the wording they like. It's all about them, but they don't write checks to themselves. And so a year later, they get frustrated because nothing's really changed. And I often get introduced at that point. I'd love to get introduced earlier and save them, I'll split that money with them. But what happens is I can quickly look at them. I can't tell them what the solution is, but I can tell them what the problem is. It's like, it's all about you. So I talked to a CPA a while back, and they were telling me, in great depth about how they're really customer focused and they care about their customer. And I believe that they're absolutely honest. But when I looked at their website, the first 6 paragraphs all started with us, we, or our. As a client, it doesn't come through. So in talking to their clients now, the secret sauce comes out as it's the expertise is how they deliver. That's how they get results, but that's not why they get hired. They get hired to have an impact on the client's business. And so professionals tend to think, lots of people do this, but the professionals I work, they think in terms of tasks. What do we do? The attorney, the CPA, the consultant, we take these steps, avoids malpractice, and they have a smooth process. And it's really important internally, but the client doesn't buy that. They're buying, how do you improve their business? A piece of paper, report, a contract doesn't do that. It's the impact, the effect of that. I say nobody cares what you do. They care what they can do because of what you do. And that's what comes out. And in some sense, I could tell them 80% of the answer because I've done this for a long time. But I'm just a stupid consultant. They won't believe me. They have to believe or talk to their best clients, not just because, I put a name on everything. So it's really, really credible. It's not some of your clients say this, some of them this.
Right.
It's like Kevin said this, Bruce said that, Mary said that, Mark said that. It's Mark said that. And it's all good things because it's their best clients. It's like, that really matters to Mark? Yeah.
That is
That
so
has,
significant, not just a collection or conglomerate of answers, but very specific. I love that too.
it's super credible because it's their very best clients, people they know, and it's super actionable because, let's face it, these are people that love doing business with them. It's not the things you could do better. I mean, occasionally there's something that's like, Kevin's great, but he could do this. But almost all the time, it's about what you do,
Mm.
but how you can do it, how you can focus and do better, surface what really matters as opposed to, and a lot of times I end up with clients, they have things that they think are important and they've invested a lot of time and effort in. And it turns out those are either don't matter or they're checkoff items. You
Mm.
have to do it, but doing it better doesn't make it any better. And then there's things that they do because it's the right thing to do or whatever reason, and they think nobody really notices or matters. It turns out that matters a lot. And so they can, in some sense, turn the dial up on what they're already doing, which is easy to do, easy, actionable, and they can cut or trim back on the things that don't matter as much or are checkoff items. And so they actually gain resources while being more effective.
Well, tell us more about that because that was my next question. What do you do with the information that you bring back to the client?
So in the really simple sense, it's positioning and messaging. It's in you said it in the introduction. It's product marketing
Mhm.
for services, and people, that's what is your offer? What is your value proposition? Who is your audience? Are you talking to the right people with the right value proposition? Is 80% of success.
Mm.
The 20% is the content and the copy and those things, and that's where a lot of people spend 80 or 90% of their effort. That's why they get frustrated because they have generic, offer, and then they try to, spice it up with clever marketing, and you can't be clear. Clarity beats clever every time.
Are you strategy only and not execution? Does somebody else execute it? Do you do that as well?
I'm strategy. So what we end
Mhm.
up with is I call a roadmap, a
Right.
more
Right.
best clients roadmap, and what that is for marketing people. It's like a high level description of what the intent, what's the
Mhm.
purpose, what's success, and what needs to happen. So the website, what's the purpose of the website? I'm not going to tell people the colors or the technology. I'm colorblind.
Mm.
I'm not going to mess with your colors.
A
Um,
marketing professional is colorblind. Love that too.
but from a standpoint of what's the purpose? So a lot of times people think, oh, well, our purpose of our website is to generate leads. Well, for a lot of high end B2B businesses, it's not. It's to
No, it's
reinforce
not about that at all.
referrals.
Yeah. Right.
It's
Right.
it's to reinforce referrals. It goes back to our 3-step referral process. Instead of trying to blast out, lead gen, that the people that are coming are high value and they've already been introduced to you. Now, how do you align with what they've been told so that they will then be really excited to talk to you and ultimately get to the point where, wow, Kevin, you're like, you get me. Everyone told me I'm supposed to talk to 3 providers, but I can't imagine anyone's going to be a better fit than you. So why don't I save myself some time? That's how it gets faster.
Mm. How many clients can you work with at any one time? And tell us a little bit about the sort of the thumbnail of those clients. Does geography
Sure.
matter? It matters less to most, but what's the size, et
Yeah.
cetera? And professional services, I assume law, accounting, et cetera, consulting. Who else?
Yeah. So, first part of the question, what was the first part again?
How many? Sorry, I did load that up. How many clients can you work with at
Oh,
any one time?
I can only work with a couple at a time because my head
Mm.
would explode and then my life wouldn't be very good. Because part of my job, as I said, is to prevent um, confirmation bias. So I
Mm.
actually go about halfway through the whole interview process without any structure. Now, when I give it to the client, there's a lot of structure because I take an hour conversation into a page or two of bullet points that
Mm.
are then parallel across all their clients, so that they can see that, and so that I've got to figure that out in my head. So that's the fun part to me. I mean, if I were to
Mm.
scale, that's what I'd have to get rid of. But I love that part. In terms of type of client, I love intangibles. I come out of a world, as we talked earlier, manufacturing and real things. This works there too. It's just that those tend to be larger companies, or people think it's the product. The founder thinks it's the product. So that boutique size professional services firm is my sweet spot, because there's a lot at stake. If you can dial up those best clients, that's money that drops right to the bottom line.
Mm.
A lot of times without organizational changes, it just drops a lot more profit to the bottom line, more fun as well. And the owner or the managing partner can make decisions. So we can get there very, very quickly.
So again, these
that's,
tend to be smaller, more boutique type
I
clients.
love boutique, because boutique, in my experience, boutique firms think more like business. So think of your typical, we'll pick on lawyers, because let's pick on lawyers, is that most lawyers do legal work and get paid for it. Now, many of them get paid very well, so I'm not knocking that business model, but
Right.
their idea of growth is more billable hours.
Mhm.
It's a linear progression. You work harder, you get more. And if you want to, earn more, you got to work harder, more hours. There's no real way around that. Those aren't good clients for me. My great clients are the smaller set that are business people whose business happens to be the law, or financial services, or construction, or that, that bent, because they're thinking about, how do I scale? How do I earn more without working harder? Isn't that the ultimate, business ninja move?
That's it. That's it. You bet.
And that doesn't mean you don't work hard, but if you're growing your profits by working harder, and you're working harder faster than the profits are growing, that's a terrible life.
Mm.
You should be earning more as you grow, not less. I mean, more in terms of profitability, not just dollars.
Does geography matter?
No,
Not at all.
not
And
at all.
why? So I know the why. Sorry. How do they come to you? Are they referred by other advisors, et cetera? Help me understand. Help us
Yes.
understand how your clients
They're
come to you.
Occasionally I will run into someone, but it almost always comes from a referral.
Mm.
Often, and as we said earlier, it's often after they've done a big rebrand and they've
Right.
had some time.
Right.
It's like, crap. I love it when I can get to them before that. I had a firm in Atlanta that we met in a networking event, and he was starting down that process. And he goes, "Oh crap, we should probably talk with you first." And I said, "You'll save yourself a lot of money if you do that." And it
So
worked out
viewers,
very well for them.
plug for you, Bruce. Viewers and listeners, if you're at that point, stop, get a hold of Bruce. Well, you
Yeah.
see the info in the crawl, but we'll get back to that too as well. So yeah, that's outstanding. Let's see. So you provide, this is a list on either on your website, or I forget where I got this. It might be LinkedIn, but doesn't matter. Marketing consulting, pricing strategy, brand consulting, management consulting, marketing strategy, content strategy. Take one or two and just break them down.
So what I do is really that strategy piece. So the branding and the content, I don't do that. What I do is I inform that. So you're old enough to, and maybe some of our viewers are old enough to remember the old BASF commercials from the 80s.
Oh yeah,
We don't make
I remember the voice
we don't
in my
make the
head. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't make the products you use. We make the products you use better. And that's
Right.
what I do.
Right.
One client described me as step zero. She goes, "Bruce, you're step zero. Everyone
Mm.
starts with step one. You start with step zero." And so step zero is really understanding that secret sauce. It's not why do we want people to buy from us, but why do they actually buy from us? And why do those very, very best clients buy from
Mm.
us?
That's outstanding.
And so when you start with that, all of a sudden it flows into everything else you do. And that's where I can do a roadmap, which is, yes, the website has a purpose. I'm not going to tell you what's in it. We'll go get someone who's an expert at that, but we're going to tell them, instead of the 14 things that everyone in your industry has to do, these are the one or two things that we know move the needle for us.
Mm.
And if they don't like that, we'll go find someone else. But in the end, what happens is they think, wow, you're like really simple. And they go, oh my God, we have a much more successful client. I had a law firm I worked with that was very old school. You got to do the handshake to develop business, and they were regional. And by the time we finished with them, a couple of years later, they're now a huge HubSpot user. because once they got really dialed in on clarity about how they improve people's business, they said, we don't have to actually meet with people in person initially. We can start to do that through other means. Now they're a national firm. Now, if I had told them that, they would use HubSpot, down the road, they would have thrown me out.
Yeah.
And we never had the, the client relationship.
Exactly.
And I didn't know it was going to go that way, but their agency ended up, had a little bit of questions like, okay, you're like telling, we think we do strategy, but they don't actually, get paid for that. They get paid for building things. I get paid for strategy. I don't get paid for building things. Look at the business model. And once they said the client was very, assertive in this case and moved forward, now they've done so much more business with that client than they ever would have done.
Wow.
It's been great for their bottom line too.
You mentioned you refer to the LOVE model, lifetime opportunity value equation. Can you break that down for us?
Oh, that goes way, way back.
If it's not as relevant, we can skip it.
Yeah, it's not as relevant. I mean, the gist of it is that there's client relationships aren't linear.
Yeah.
You can go forward, you can go backwards, and they're built on really the relationship as opposed to the classic, awareness, consideration buy.
Let's see. Yeah, some interesting things. We're closing in on time to wrap up. You're an e-speakers certified visual presenter. You're also a member of the National Speakers Association. You're clearly very good at what you do. Tell me what motivated those two affiliations.
So I love to talk about what I do. And, I like to share my experiences. It gives me an opportunity to, go beyond just the people I know in terms of referrals and to have a broader impact. So that's why I've spoken for years, and the last, year or so really started to get serious about doing that explicitly as opposed to when it comes along.
Right.
And then, of course, COVID and virtual. There's, we do a lot of that now. I mean, we're doing this now. I mean, I don't have to come up to Boston to talk to you, and we can have a great conversation, and you have a much broader reach, as do I.
Without a doubt. I'm a current Rotarian. I'm the current president of our second year, by the way. You're a former Rotarian. Tell the audience.
I'm a current Rotarian.
Oh, you are?
Rotarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. You've also, it looks like, done things at the district level as well. But volunteering looks important to you. There are several instances of volunteering. Whenever this happens, I always ask the guest, give a 30-second pitch for why others should volunteer.
Because that's how you make it. If you want to create the neighborhood or community you want to live in.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways to do that. There's more need than there is, there is people. So pick one that's good for you. Don't worry about what is most important. Find the one that's valuable to you and dive in.
Love that. All right, couple of quick questions to wrap up. Who in the listening and viewing audiences should reach out to you, and why? We mentioned, if they're about to do a big branding campaign, they should pause and talk to you. Who else?
Firm owners, mid-sized firms, and from that standpoint, it's firms. They don't have to be particularly big, but there has to be. If we can dial up your profitability, it makes a big difference. So if you have really tight margins and growing that, you got to do a lot of change to move the needle. But if you're a high-end professional where there's a lot of profit, and if you can dial up the profit and get rid of those headache clients, there's a huge impact. And so you don't have to be a particularly large firm. At some point, you get big enough that people think that they. There's a lot of bureaucracy, and I'm on my own because I don't want to deal with bureaucracy. Deal with your own bureaucracy. But that's a pretty nice. And so it's really more organizational than it is size of organization. I worked with a construction company that was $200 million, but they ran 5 owners. They ran like a firm that was much smaller.
Nice.
And so I want to have a big impact. I want to have where I can have an impact fairly quickly, and have a success. I always tell people I'm too small an operation to have unsuccessful clients. So I want everyone to be a big success.
I am with you there. Bruce, thank you so much for being here. He is Bruce at eastwoodstrategy.com. That's the website as well, eastwoodstrategy.com. If you've got questions, reach out. Bruce, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is a fun conversation.
And for me as well. And thanks everybody for watching and listening. This is a show about business and business challenges. If you've got concerns about the sales growth of your company, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn at Winning Business Radio. You can drop me a note. One of my many email addresses is kevin@winningbusinessradio.com. Our company is Winning Incorporated. We're part of Sandler Training. We develop sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. We're not a fit for everyone, but hey, maybe we should have a conversation. Thank you to our producer and engineer, Juan, for another job well done. Be sure to join us next week. That's Monday, January 15th. My guest will be Stephen Strom, author of Success and Self-Discovery. Until then, this is Kevin Hallinan.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.